All right, have and have not fans. Now, here's an interesting what if question, kind of based off of Candace's rant at the end of the last episode about blaming Hannah and Benny for the death of Quincy Jr. Now, the question being asked is, would Quincy Jr. have been better off in foster care? Again, would Quincy Jr. have been better off in foster care rather than being in custody of both Candace as well as his grandmother Hannah? Now, I'm going to be honest here. If he was in foster care, I think we can all agree that number one, Aaliyah, as well as the rest of the people working in the foster care child services department, would have made sure that he would have been in a good living situation rather than the one he was in with his aunt Quita. So on one hand, I do agree that Quincy Jr. would have been alive. I do agree that he would have been alive if he was in foster care. However, I can definitely see how it would be heartbreaking for him due to the fact that he just got reintroduced as well as, into the life of his grandmother and uncle. Not to mention, I believe he had actually seen his mom a couple of times in the hospital. A brief visit with his father, of course. And then to be taken and given to a family of strangers, he would probably asking a lot of questions in terms of, do they love me? Did they just take me from one family member and just toss me to a bunch of strangers? What did I do wrong? It's almost the same thing of, parents who fight in front of their children, or if they get a divorce, something goes wrong and the child grows up thinking that it's something that they did. They think it's their fault. Maybe they didn't want me. So in terms of livelihood, he would have been with a family that would love him, take care of him, support him. But at the same time, he would probably be heartbroken over the fact that he just got reintroduced into the lives of his main family. They got reintroduced to him, but then they're torn apart. But if I'm not, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't Candace say that until she got into a situation where she can definitely take care of her son, she would have him in foster care and then eventually get him back? I think that's what she told Benny and Hannah at one point. I don't recall exactly, but I think something along those lines were brought up. I do know that Erica did suggest that, hey, get your son in the custody of your mom because, like, my child is with my parents because of the life I live. It will be safer for him, given the fact that Warlock keeps appearing at your house out of the blue. There's no telling if he'll be caught in the crossfire at one point or another, which sadly he eventually was. Now, in terms of Hannah, again, I believe she's the one that loves that child more than anyone else. But she was in no position to take care of him, given the fact that she didn't have an income. Remember, at the time, she wasn't working. I do believe that Catherine did offer her job back. But again, in terms of a steady income, Hannah wasn't working. She didn't have enough money to support them both. She didn't have a home. Remember, Quincy destroyed it. And at the time of gaining custody, she had nothing else but the motel. So right off the bat, Hannah was not able to hold a stable household for Quincy Jr. to live in. Not to mention, the only reason she got custody was because Candace left the hospital when Aaliyah and her boss were there, and she got wind of the fact that, your son's father Quincy was here, and then Candace got so spooked that instead of visiting her son, who had actually been asking for the past few hours, just left. And that was enough to say, you know what, give it to the grandmother. So basically, in terms of stable living conditions, I definitely think that foster care was the best option for Quincy Jr. Kind of like Amanda, she was put into the institution just like Catherine suggested. I don't think she would have been killed off of the show. Just as if Quincy Jr. was in foster care, he could have been out of the show temporarily and then brought back maybe in the epilogue, the last few episodes, just to, have like a storybook happy ending. But sadly, he got killed as a result. But overall, I do think in the long run, he would have been better off in foster care. But sadly, I do believe he would have felt heartbroken as a result. Kind of a throwback to Boy Meets World when Eric was on the verge of adopting a boy, but couldn't really give him a stable family himself because I believe at the time Eric was out of high school, but he didn't have a solid job. And I don't know if he was in college or not. I got to go back and look. I love that show, Boy Meets World, but he just knew that in terms of a stable household, of a mother and a father, the boy would have been better off. So he had to pretend that he didn't want him anymore just to, let him to get adopted by a loving family. Then he flips back in Girl Meets World to talk about how awesome of a person Eric was and what the decision meant for him as a child in terms of making him a successful adult. So again, I really do think that Quincy Jr. would have been better off in foster care, even though it would have been heartbreaking for everyone involved. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on the scenario? Was Quincy Jr. better in foster care? Yes, Candace's reasons for that was mainly due to the fact that I'd rather have my son in foster care, and I quote, than stay with your crazy ass like I did. So let me know your thoughts about the subject, and I'll talk to you in the next video.